Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. And as we get started today with our episode, I just wanted to welcome my guest, Jim Pollock. He is an experienced technology entrepreneur with a background in electrical engineering from MIT and a track record for successfully launching and exiting multiple startup companies. So, with that, welcome, Jim. It's great to have you on.
Don, happy to be here. Good to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. And as we get started here, would you mind just telling the listeners just a little bit about yourself and your background? What was it that brought you from being an electrical engineer at MIT to becoming a serial entrepreneur in the tech industry?
Well, I think actually the thing that even took me to MIT to start with was I grew up, my dad was an electrical engineer and grew up in the early radio days. So his passion was listening to radio, Philadelphia. He grew up in Philadelphia, listening to Philadelphia, Chicago, and New York, the early radio stations with little crystal radios he built. And then he always was interested in audio. And then after he got his electrical engineering degree, he ended up working in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. It was part of the Manhattan Project. So I always like to say I came from a true nuclear family in Tennessee. And he owned after the war. He worked at in the project, and after the war, he opened up a hi-fi shop and sold stereo equipment. Well, mono equipment for a while, and then stereo equipment, etc. And so I worked for him and worked with that. So I was always surrounded by it. And I think what I didn't realize, but what got kind of implanted was he was his own guy. He had his own business and did his own thing. Completely independent. And without knowing it, I think that made an imprint. Then I ended up always being interested in science, math, and whatnot. Went to MIT, got an electrical engineering degree, worked for Hewlett Packard right out of excuse me, worked for Hewlett Packard right out of school, and and then basically I got to a point where I was ready to thinking about maybe it's time to go get an MBA or do something else. And then a couple of guys from the HP division I worked with did a startup out in California in the Bay Area and called me up and said, "Hey, why don't you come out here, grow your hair long, be a hippie, and join us?" So the growing the hair long didn't work out, but everything else did. And basically, I got bit by. I loved Hewlett Packard. I loved what I learned from them and the products we worked with and all, and the customers we worked with. And then we did our own startup. I just got that bug, and so I love HP. Couldn't go back.
Hmm.
I've been at 8 different early stage companies since then. I just love taking something from basically nothing to something. In fact, I like that more than going from something to something else, kind of thing.
How did those early experiences, either through MIT or even HP or even the other startups that you were in, how did they impact the way that you think about starting a new company and innovation as well?
Well, it's like it's so inside. I've always had a passion for technology and things that are new and different, and that kind of feeds into, well, I want to do things that create products that also are new and different, and can affect other people. I mean, there's no much more fun than building a product that people want to use, and if it's something that can actually save a few hours a day, it can change the quality of what they do, some kind of impact there. That makes it worthwhile to have someone say, "Hey, I've been using your product for 5 years, and this is a great thing." And it's just that there's a thrill to that. And in a sense, I've never been motivated by. I mean, I'm hoping we're successful with this company. We can make a few bucks at the end of the day, but it's like it's not the money. I've almost always taken the lower paying job when I had the next two options, because it's I want to do the thing it excites me. Then I can bring like my dad. I mean, he basically lived his passion of audio for his entire life, and made a business to do that. And so I guess again, without realizing, I kind of started to do the same thing.
And I would imagine your electrical engineering background, has to at times, be helpful in terms of asking the right questions and at least helping you ask about things that are currently happening in companies that you're working on.
Yeah, and in fact, that's kind of the engineering side of it. And I guess that's why I gravitated to engineering. it's like in engineering, you can't look at a process or look at something without saying, how could this be just a little bit better? How can I make this a little more efficient? How can I organize my computer screen a little better to get things done faster? It's like anytime you see some process, it's like, how can I change it? How can I make it a little bit different or better? And then that leads to basically into product and product development and all the same thing. So it's really that engineering. And in fact, I've been in several startup companies, and for a long time, I mean, I was doing mostly software, and when we put together an engineering or software team to build, I tended for many years to actually hire engineers that picked up programming as opposed to hiring like a CS, computer science person, because I wanted someone who software was just the tool to implement what they think and what they can do. And so I've always kind of been partial towards engineers doing that development work and all for the same reason.
Very good. And so, as a CEO of LumenAstra, what motivated you to focus on commercializing non-invasive temperature sensors? And then, how do you see this technology impacting various fields like surgery or consumer applications?
Yeah, so what we're developing, let me see if I still got it in my pocket, and I do. So what we're developing right now is a little sensor that's about the size of a $half, if people still know what a $half looks like anymore. And the idea of this, it's a wearable, it's non-invasive, and I can just place it anywhere in your body, and it measures internal temperature several centimeters below the skin. So if I put it on my forehead, I could actually measure my brain temperature directly in real time, or I can put it on the side, measure liver temperature, kidney temperature. So it's a targeted temperature that we're measuring. And where this came about was I was kind of between gigs, and I got involved with the tech transfer office at the University of Colorado. And just because, and basically what I was a volunteer to do entrepreneur in residence. So I worked with faculty that had IP. Or faculty and researchers that had IP, had patents, whatever, and just talk to them about, well, what is it you're doing? What is it that you want to do with this? What do you think it can do? How would do you want to commercialize it? Do you want to see another company license it and commercialize it? What do you want to do? What's your goals with the technology you're working on? And also, how will we commercialize this? And is it commercializable? So just kind of asking all those questions. So I met a lot of faculty with just a lot of it being involved at CU. It's just a lot of really deep tech things that are actually hard to do. And it's really fun for me. It's like, this is not trivial stuff. This isn't a 6 months with software and I got a product done. This is stuff that's going to take some work, and it's going to be significant. Almost everything we talked about. And the whole time I had kind of a selfish eye that if I saw something really cool, I might want to jump back in again. And it takes deal flow. It's like, Don, I can't just say, hey, Don, let's you and I grab a cup of coffee and come up with a new idea for a company. It takes a lot of thought, a lot of exposure to a lot of different ideas, immersion in things where we really find something that is significant, can actually do something that's different. And that's when I ran across Dr. Zoya Popovich, and she's a brilliant woman. She's a Caltech PhD, and she's run their microwave lab at CU for 30 years now, and she's prolific. She has graduated, I think, as of a couple of weeks ago, 76 PhD students in her career. And she's the inventor of this technology. And I came across her patent and talked to her about what she was doing. And I just thought, okay, this is my wheelhouse again. This is actually good old hardcore electrical engineering, Planck's constant, Planck's law, black body radiation that we're measuring coming out of the body. And so the first thing I did was I went out and made probably 20 phone calls. I called a bunch of physicians, surgeons, people that are like here in Boulder area. We've got a lot of people that are Medtronic or ex-Medtronic. So I talked to several ex-Medtronic people, and pretty much the response I got every time was, "You can do what? You can actually measure a brain temperature from the outside, because there is no way to measure brain temperature without drilling a hole, and not many people volunteer to do that." And and we also, I ran across probably about 10 to 12 different applications where this would be work, all in just on the human body areas. And and after listening to talk to a bunch of people and seeing who got the most excited about this, we actually picked for our first application. We picked aortic surgery. So you have basically the aorta that carries all the blood this part of it takes it down to your lower body. The upper part of it up here carries it up into your brain, to your head, and upper limbs. And you can have what they call a dissection, where you get a little thin spot, and the blood goes breaks between layers, and it goes to the wrong places. 50% of the people die right on the spot when that happens. It's not something you want to have happen. But the ones that do survive that, it's pretty much emergency surgery. And what they have to do is they've got to repair that aorta, which means they've got to shut the blood supply off to your brain while they do that. So what they do is they deep cool you down to, like, normally you're at 98.6, so to speak, or which is 37 degrees centigrade. They take you down to about 14 degrees. So they pretty much flatline you so that your brain is not being active. Then they shut the blood supply off, make the repair, warm you back up again. And about 17% of people die during that surgery. And there's 60% they'll have some kind of cognitive loss, because of the deprivation of oxygen for that period of time. And so when we talk to a cardiothoracic surgeon who does that, within 5 minutes, they just tell me, Jim, just shut up. Can you send me a box of these? I get it. Because I could actually, if I can know the brain temperature, because right now we use nasal temperature and they use
Mhm.
bladder temperature as a surrogate for the brain, and it's different. It lags as they cool you, it lags by 7, 8 minutes, what the temperature of your brain is. So they have to wait until those organs get to a steady state, and those are catheters they put in you to measure that temperature. And then they wait a few minutes longer, assuming that the brain is going to get to the same steady state temperature. But with our sensor, they'll be able to actually measure the brain in real time. They know exactly when they hit the safe temperature. So we think we can start the surgery about 15 minutes earlier. And we think we'll save about 20% of the people who die, because the longer you have to be cold to do it, but the longer you're cold, the more likely you are to either die or have that cognitive loss. So that's, to me, that was incredibly compelling. When we have these surgeons saying, give me some of these, and I said, well, I can't give it to you. Well, then can we help? Can we do preclinical work? Can we try this thing as soon as you're ready for it? So we knew that was our first application. And then some of the others, we're working with the U.S. Army right now. They want to be able to measure internal body temperature, true internal temperature, as an early warning of heat stress.
Mhm.
They lose thousands of soldiers every year to casualties and deaths to both heat stress and hypothermia, being too cold, wading through bogs and rivers and things like that. So basically, we ended up with a kind of matrix of the different type applications, prioritized them by what we thought was the most important and the ones that need to go to market first. And we're kind of now sequentially kind of working down that list. And so we're heading towards maybe next year actually having a product ready to go for the aortic repair.
Yeah, for anybody that remembers John Ritter, that's how he died, was aortic dissection. And I just remember, one day, essentially he's doing like his next sitcom, and the next day they're
Yeah,
talking about him on the news that, hey, look, he had this happen in his trailer or whatever and just collapsed, and that was it. So
yeah.
yeah,
And
I
that's the
remember
thing.
really clearly that one.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I've run across. I mean, I have a father-in-law who survived aortic repair,
Wow.
and I've run across a friend here locally who's kind of in the whole UC system, and her husband went through this, and he was fortunate in that they caught it early when it was just a thin spot, an aneurysm, it hadn't broke yet, so he had a little bit of time to find a surgeon, get the thing planned, and get it done. But he was terrified. In fact, he was actually more afraid of waking up with cognitive loss than just plain dying during the surgery. But he knew that
Mm.
both of those were a risk to happen, and he did survive it. And so and that's the thing that's kind of fun about this. There's really two things that excite me about the company we have right now. One is that we found an application that's significant, that we can actually make a difference. We think we can save several, just in this one application, we can save a couple of thousand lives a year just in the US, and triple that, worldwide. And that's very motivating. And then it's unique. It's something that just hasn't been done before. And it's because it's very hard. I mean, it took us, uh, when I met Zoya, she told me, she says, Jim, if we start a company here, this is hard stuff. It's going to take us, I'm going to say 2.5 years before we have a product. And I told her, hey, I'm a startup guy. We'll get this done faster than that. That was 5 years ago. It really was hard. And we've just in the last few months actually had some breakthroughs and kind of gotten over. There's two things we knew we had to overcome to get this to actually work. And we've done it now. And so now we're starting to refine, our next generation we think is going to be actually a prototype that's a commercial prototype that we can actually start going out and doing some in vivo animal tests. And then right now we've got a $2 million grant application with National Institutes of Health to do a study with Anschutz. We're going to be teaming up with the cardiothoracic team at Anschutz to actually do some patient studies and test this.
Excellent.
So,
Yeah. So, I mean, I think you touched on several of these, but I'd love to hear a little bit more of the details around it. What are some of the most significant challenges that you faced in developing and marketing this technology? And how did you address those?
yeah, so when we first started, Zoe and I kind of thought, well, this is a hard technology, and there's two major things we're going to have to solve to make this work. She had demonstrated the science. She had a first prototype was a 2x4, about about 2.5 feet long with components on it. And basically what we're doing is we're a microwave receiver because your body, every cell in your body is generating broad spectrum electromagnetic energy, very small, but it's generating it, and it's proportional to the temperature of those cells. And so what we're doing is we're focusing in on a little area of microwaves. Again, we're not generating any, we just listen to the microwaves coming out of your body, and they're proportional to temperature. And your microwave oven, works the same way, and it generates 1,000 watts. 1,200 watts is your typical microwave oven. We're looking for or I'm sorry, femtowatts, 10 to the minus 15. So instead of 1 times 10 to the 3,000, we're looking at 10 with 15 zeros before we actually get it. So we've got an amplifier in this thing that has a gain of 8 million. And we're sitting right next to frequencies that have GPS signals, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, cell phones. So there's all kinds of huge signals and microwave ovens that are right next to us. And we're trying to kind of pick out a little quiet area between them, filter the heck out of everything out. We got several techniques for getting rid of all that other side. But so the biggest problem we knew we were going to have to do is mitigation of all these other signals. In fact, what we're trying to measure, it's kind of the reverse of most electrical engineering things. We're trying to measure noise coming out of your body, and anything that's a signal is something we don't want. So we're trying to get rid of signals and just pick up that noise. And the second thing is, effectively, we're the same science that a radio telescope is. A radio telescope picks up microwaves, in fact, at the exact same frequency we use, 1.4 gigahertz, from stars. And then that's proportional to the temperature of the stars. They convert that into a temperature. Except radio telescopes are easy. You got 10,000 light years of just nothing. It's vacuum. It's easy to calibrate that. For us, we're looking through 4 centimeters of skin, fat, muscle, bone, meninges, brain. So we've got 7 layers of tissue, and each one reflects and refracts those microwaves differently. And that's the secret sauce. That's what people have tried this for about 20 years, and they've been able to actually make an antenna similar to ours, put it on a big amplifier, put them on a treadmill and run, and the power goes up. They take them off the treadmill, power goes down. So they've been making that basic measurement. No one knew how to calibrate it. No one could turn that into a temperature. And that's what Zoya figured out. She figured out the weighting factors for each of these different layers of tissue that are between our sensor, and the target we're trying to measure, and knows how to weight those things and then calibrate it. And so that was a very difficult problem. And right now we've got an incredible team. We've got a PhD in microwave that's doing has done the fundamental design of this whole sensor that we're doing. And we've got another PhD from CU in physics who's doing our algorithm development that figures out how to pull out that little part that's the brain and not your skin. The skin dominates, the temperature we see. And so we have to pull that out. And so those were two problems we knew we had to solve. And Zoe and I both thought 2080, we can actually pull this off, but hey, if we get the 80, this is going to be significant. And most recently now we're basically at that 90%. We think we can do this now as we've taken it a lot further along. And in fact, we've even at the lab at CU, we've had a PhD student basically design a single chip that's 2 millimeters, the size of Washington's nose on a quarter, that replaces 5 times what was on that original 2x4. So we know we're going to be able to make this thing even smaller and better down the road.
Wow. That's excellent. So, I mean, that leads me to my next question, which is, how do you envision the future in medical technology or non-medical technology, um, and how do you see it playing a role in changing the way that we monitor health?
This is the really exciting area. And there's really there's we've got I'll say one little wave. We figured out a particular thing of technology and science that can make one specific measurement, a deep internal core temperature that no one else has been able to do before, except very invasively, and you just can't do it. So, and we're basically riding two current technology waves that are going to affect healthcare tremendously. One of those is just miniaturization, wearables, all the things that contribute to doing that. So we've got our little core of technology that senses that temperature, but then there's also, we're getting technologies from other people that help us make it smaller, have a battery that'll make this thing work for 30 days when it's on, when you put it on. And then when you get a wearable like that, all of a sudden we change the game. And that's what really changes in healthcare, is going from a singular measurement, like putting a infrared scan of your forehead, 3 seconds, you get one measurement. Put a thermometer in your mouth, you know, 30 seconds, you get one measurement. What we're doing is we can take that little sensor, place it someplace under your clothes, anywhere on someplace on your body, make an internal measurement like that, and do that every few seconds continuously all the time. And so, for a good example is when you're trying to get pregnant, one of the techniques is you're looking for a few tenths of a degree change in your body temperature that shows when ovulation is about to occur. And the way it's done today is women will take a basal thermometer, put it in your mouth at 5:30 in the morning, get that one, and you make one measurement, and you're looking for 2/10 of a degree change in your body temperature when your body actually changes a full degree over the day, your circadian temperature. And so how that works with a single measurement, when if you had an extra glass of wine that night, if you didn't sleep well, that's going to change that temperature as much as the fertility side will. But if we can make that measurement continuously, we'll nail that circadian temperature. We'll know what your cycle is every single day in temperature. And then when we see a 2/10 of a degree variation of that, you just ovulated, or you're ready to ovulate, in the next day. So it really changes the game when you get these wearables that can measure things continuously. And so that's one wave, is things that make wearables possible and communicate, Bluetooth, et cetera, to communicate information. The second wave we're riding is kind of related to a lot of this AI that's out there. And I'm not talking about, general artificial intelligence that everybody says is going to do autonomous weapons that can kill us and take over the world and all that. I'm just talking about just these more advanced things that are happening right now that allow us to combine a lot of information and derive diagnoses and derive information from it. So ultimately, what we sort of see happening is that it won't be just our sensor measuring temperature. There will also be sensors with us that measure your skin temperature, your
Well, it seems like I might have just lost Jim. So hold on one second. Hopefully, we get you back, Jim. Everything just froze on my end, so hopefully this, like I said, comes back. Not sure. Hey, folks, I'm gonna do a quick speed test on my side too to make sure it's not me. If somebody's on LinkedIn, if you want to, just hang out and say hello, that'd be great. Just to let me know that. Ah, there we go. We got Jim again. So here we go. Hey, Jim, not sure what happened there. I can't get you back. Here's what we're gonna do. I am going to try and get Jim on a different channel here. Hold on a second, everybody. If you're still watching, hang out there and I will do my best to get Jim back. So hold on one second.
Let's see. So I am okay. Okay. It's on my mic. Let me see if I can let me switch back over to my headphones here. Okay. Now, so can you hear me? Or
I'm not seeing Zoom do anything. It doesn't seem like it's showing my audio. One weird reason.
okay, so I'm hearing you. I'm not sure where I'm hearing you, but I'm hearing you here. I'm, I'm saying audio speaker is my headphone, but I'm not hearing you there. Okay. Oh, I think I'm hearing you on my phone, as a matter of fact. Okay, so let me go ahead and hang up the phone or okay, we'll do that. Okay. I see your mouth. I'm not hearing you. Um, and still, okay, so I'm talking and you're hearing me okay, but I'm not hearing you right now. Okay. Huh. I think I'm on speakers.
Hey, folks. So I have Jim back.
Oh, there we go. Yeah, it just
Okay,
came through.
good. Oh, excellent. All right. So it was just that. Um, yeah. So I have you back, and maybe we just continue on from here. I'm gonna actually switch my microphone back to the other source that I had, um,
Okay.
and that way, um, hopefully everything stays here as well. So. Um, yeah, so I'm sorry that we lost you in the midst of that. I think you were finishing your statement, I think, about just the applications that you see in the future for your device.
Yeah. And kind of to finish that thought, so like say we've got an interesting technology for measuring one component that no one else has been able to do. But then when you combine temperature with things like monitoring your glucose level, picking up your skin temperature, picking up respiration rate, heart rate, when you start picking up all those signals, put it in a wearable, so I'm continuously capturing that information. All of a sudden, we got a lot of information that talks to us about what your body is doing. And then where AI is going to help, and again, I'm not talking about, you know, what do you call it? The general AI that can run autonomous vehicles and fire autonomous weapons and kill people on autonomously and all that and take over the world. I'm just talking about that general machine learning and ability to combine a lot of sets of data. And in fact, if that system can also have these parameters live about your body, but also understand your basic DNA buildup, your medical history of where you've been, it can really help a lot as far as what is really going on and what's different about you right now. What's changed over the last day? It's changed over the last year, and be a big predictor of how you're doing, where you're going, and your health needs. So there's two or three waves of these technologies that are really going to change things in healthcare and be very significant for all of us, I think, down the very, very near future down the road.
Yeah, and I just could only imagine all of the ways that people could monitor their body. The funny thing to me is, um, we have a lot of these consumer technologies from rings to watches and things like that today. But then you kind of think about whenever you have all of this data, including core temperature and things like that, it's going to be a lot to go through. And even though there's all of these scare tactics around AI, I also think about just the massive benefits of having a tool that can, comb through things and tell us where the valuable information is versus the noise.
Yeah, I read an article. Is a an article, and I think it was actually in one of my MIT Technology Review magazines, and it talked about it asked the question, what is the one company that has actually been published this past year? And this was about 6 years ago, that was published in all of the major peer-reviewed magazines. So Science, Nature, New England Journal of Health. What one company has been published in all of those. And it was Google, and it was on artificial intelligence. And one of the publications was I thought was fascinating, which is talking about retinal problems with your eye, retinal disease. And right now, the way it's done is it takes a an eye expert, an optical expert, a retinal expert to be able to look at an image of your retina and determine whether you've got a problem or not. And usually what happens, it's expensive, it takes a lot of time, it takes a professional to do that. And basically they only make that they do the expense of actually making that measurement or that image and looking at it only when you actually start to have problems they do it.
Mm.
What this article talked about was how they've actually raised the expertise in image processing where they can do it now pretty fast and with more accuracy than that than that eye expert can do and can do it day in, day out. So all of a sudden, every time you go to the doctor, we can just take an image and have that processed and they'll know super early. They can check everyone all the time for something like that instead of only after you got a problem. That kind of thing is going to occur all across the spectrum where we can do just continuous simple things continuously to find early warnings of problems and diseases and whatnot.
So important. So, Jim, in terms of your career, what have been some of the most significant either leadership advice that you've received or leadership advice that you've given? I feel like a lot of people sort of, also use this opportunity to talk about things that they think are more significant as they're building companies as well in terms of
Yeah.
leadership advice.
Well, there's probably, I think a lot of us, one of those influential people is that first boss you have, out of school. And the Emil Aramuni, the guy I worked for at Hewlett Packard, I was actually in a sales group. I was assistant engineer in a sales group. And one of the things he said is, he says, my legacy at Hewlett Packard when I leave, it's not going to be the sales records I've had or the quota performance I had over the years. It's the team, it's the people I hire. That's my legacy that I leave here. And he says, Jimmy boy, he used to always call me. He says, Jimmy boy, I want you just to remember, always hire the best people you can. And in fact, always hire people that are actually smarter than you are when you can. And so I've kind of taken that to heart. And so, like when we've built the teams I've built along the way, especially when we got here at LumenAstra, I've definitely hired people that are smarter than I am to do this and to do what we're trying to do. And the second lesson I learned from that, and it took me actually quite a while longer, it was once you hire people that are smarter than you, let them be smarter than you. And I think I found myself not willing to ask someone to do something I'm not willing to do myself, and basically restraining what we can actually do as a team. And this team we've got built up at LumenAstra right now is the most talented team I've ever worked with. We've got two PhDs. In fact, what we did was we actually identified, as we just started the company, we identified four competencies that we need to own in order to pull this off. We needed to have an extremely good microwave engineer that's just not out there almost. We needed to have some really significant algorithm development. We needed to have package design and be able to prepare for our FDA type stuff down the road and document everything. And we needed a general electrical engineer that just knows how to do really good firmware communications, all the rest, the back end of the stuff. So those are four competencies we had to have. So we went out, and the first thing we did is we hired the first person, a microwave person that was just really super. Then we figured out what things are left, hired the second person, put those together, what's left. And so we ended up hiring four people, and we've got nice overlap and cover it. And the really neat thing is this gang we put together is really smart. They're very complementary. It's like putting a chorus together. I mean, they harmonize. I mean, there's no egos as to who's the most important. Everyone has a job that has to happen, or this thing doesn't work. And that to me, that's the passion of this thing. One is finding a product opportunity that actually you can make a difference with. And then second, it's all about the fun part is actually putting the team together to do it. And that's what I get my biggest kick out of is putting that team together and then seeing the things that happen. and things that I couldn't possibly do myself, that's happening here. And I just have to sit back, let these guys go, and we're having a lot of fun. They are super motivated. They know we can save lives, we can build a product. They want to see a product go to market, and they know they need each other to do it. It's really a pretty cool experience when you do that.
Very cool.
And I'll say one other little piece of advice someone gave me once is an MIT friend of mine just said, anytime you do anything, think big, start small, scale quick. And I think that's really important. You have to be thinking big, way beyond where you want to be. So you've really got a solid object you're aiming for. And then you start small and then start iterating fast and moving towards that goal. And often you have to change, but when you change the big picture first, and then follow the small steps to get there. So that's to me just a fundamental thing that we just always try to practice.
Absolutely important, and I love the idea of building a chorus as well. So, thank you for sharing that,
Sure,
Jim.
yeah.
What inspires you?
Well, I think it's kind of what I just said there. I mean, what inspires me is getting a group of people together to do something that's significant, can change. There's a one of my MIT buddies here in town about 2 or 3 years ago. We had a lunch together, and he asked the question, says, how smart do you have to be? What do you have to do to be smart enough to actually make a change, impact society in some way? Because there's so many papers and research papers published every year. There's so many people that get PhDs every year. There's such a wealth of information that's been building and building across this entire world for the last, well, thousands of years, but for the last 30 years, just an amazing amount of stuff. In order to make a contribution to society, do you have to get 3 PhDs to do it? And what we said is, no, what you got to do is you got to have a team. Because if you're going to build the next generation robot, one person can't do it. It's not going to make the better robot. You have to have somebody who's really smart in mechanical engineering. You got to have someone who's really smart in excuse me, in electrical engineering and control systems. You have to have someone really smart, a bio person that can make biosensors to sense, feel, touch, force, pressure, and things like that. Then you got to have somebody in CS and an AI person that can combine all this information all together and do vision observations and analysis. So it takes a team of really smart people. But then all of a sudden it's that interdisciplinary thing, and that excites me. That ability for a group of people to come together and collaborate together, harmonize together, and end up with something that really truly makes a difference to society. And that's where the contribution comes from. That's what gets me excited, is having an opportunity to try to build a team like that and do that.
Yeah, absolutely. What concerns you?
You know, what concerns me, I mean, I'm super excited about what we're doing. I'm super excited about the team, the opportunity, the things we're doing. I'm having the most fun out of 8 companies I've been involved with. This is the most fun I've ever had. What scares me is what's happened in the last 6 months in science. We're currently like we've got a we have we're doing something that's really hard. When we talked to some angel investors, we talked to VCs, and there was too much risk. They don't want to take risks. They want to wait. They say, you're doing something cool, keep us posted. And once you're making measurements, once you're starting to see good results, let's talk again. They want to make sure the risk is way down and that we've got something that we're within a year of getting it out. And that's how much risk they're willing to take, all these people that are your quote technology investors. The only reason we were able to pull this off, because we needed 3 or 4 years here, 5 years almost, to actually get this thing to work and be able to make that contribution. The only place we could do it was with National Science Foundation, U.S. Army, people who have money that is for high risk, high reward. I mean, that's what National Science Foundation, that's their mission, is to find the things that VCs won't pay for yet, but have huge promise for societal change and fund those things. So we've raised $3.3 million in the last 4 years here. And we wouldn't be here without that. And we got one more round to do. We've got a proposal out to National Institute of Health to do it. We're going to do a collaboration with the thoracic surgeon team at Anschutz. And so it's a $2 million grant application. And we have no idea what's going to happen right now. This is 6 months ago, I would have, because we're 7 for 7 in grant applications and awards because we got something that's important and novel. And so again, knock on wood, that's 7 for 7. And right now, it's like to get an NSF phase two grant, it's like you got a 5% chance of getting it. The cuts that they've made this year, that 5% is down to about 2%. There's less than half of the number of grants are going to be given out this next year. NIH, same thing. We would have been a slam dunk 6 months ago. Right now, we have no idea if we're going to get this grant. And if we don't, it could stop us right in our tracks. Here we are. We've developed all this. We've solved the problems. We're ready to go that one more round, and we may not get it. And that scares me. And it's not just me. I mean, what's happening to us, potentially happening to us, is happening across the board. I mean, the investments from National Institute of Health is down about a quarter of what it was the same time last year. So already, and that's before the new budget goes in that asks for another 40% cut from NIH. That's why we're a leading country, in so many technologies, the medical technologies and AI and other areas because of these research grants. And they're getting stifled right now. So that scares the heck out of me. It's not just our company, but it's what this is going to do. We're going to lose a generation of incredible talent in this country. This isn't going to be just a 4-year break. It's going to take years to recover from that afterwards. This is a generational break it's occurring to us in real time right now.
Such an important statement overall, and I've heard similar things. I've heard, other countries are, heavily recruiting in some of our greatest universities, across the U.S. One, two, I've heard that you can bet that the greater majority of the dollars still are going to go towards cancer. So what does that leave for anybody else? If you have something going on with your heart or with your eyes, or any other thing that somebody's working on that's critical, like a core temperature sensor as an example. um i- i- you know Certainly fighting for those dollars is a tough thing.
Oh
And
yeah. Well,
yeah.
that's exactly right. And I saw some statistics recently for the SBIR program, the Small Business Research Grants. And so that's what we've won. We won $3.3 million of SBIR grants. And when you look at I've seen statistics on the number of new drugs that entered the market in this last couple of years. It's a significant percentage of those, 60, 70% of those started with an SBIR, at one point. I've seen statistics on for every dollar that goes into these SBR research programs, how many dollars of tax revenue comes back to the U.S. government because of the businesses that form from it. And quite honestly, if you really want to make the government more efficient and more productive, the first thing you do is take the SBIR program and double it because it
Mm,
more than pays for itself. It's like, I think in cancer research, for every dollar spent on an SBIR for cancer research, U.S. government tax revenue is like $3.50 comes back from it every year. And so it's a 3-to-1 ratio, and that's even with the failures that don't work, because that's the whole idea is you want to take the high risk things, and some of them won't work.
yeah.
But you get a few that really work and really change things and all.
Right. Last question: what excites you?
Well, that's like, I mean, for me right now, this is the thing that gets me excited, gets me up every morning here at 5:50 in the morning to talk to you. Um,
Here, I thought I
again,
was the only crazy one here.
no. There's a few of us out there, but this is the thing that gets me excited. It's just a chance again to work with a group of people and do something that changes something. And it's not just I'm excited about it. Our team is really excited about it. That gets me even more excited. So it's this big forward, feedback loop, that happens. And it just feels like, like when we get up and we get at work each day here, that we're really doing something that can actually affect lives. And it's like, like I said, meeting that friend of ours who went through the surgery and survived it. It's like we're going to increase the chances of a lot of other people that don't survive that. And so it's exciting stuff, and this whole science and technology is pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Jim, thank you so much for getting up early and being on the Life Science Success podcast with me, and for sharing the story about LumenAstra. I greatly enjoyed our conversation, and hopefully people can take away some great things that you guys are working on, and I look forward to seeing the technology come through.
I appreciate that. And hey, you're local here. Let's grab a coffee sometime and keep up on it. So it's been
Happy to
fun.
do it.
Enjoyed talking to you quite a bit. Thanks.
All right. Thanks.